Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this episode 3830 BN. Today's date is February 1st, 2026, and the title of the episode is The Deep State Attempt to Muddy the Waters with Epstein Has Failed. Trump Prepares for Mass Roundup. Now, the rules of money are being rewritten right in front of our eyes. The institutions that control the financial system aren't waiting, warning, or wishing. They are acting, buying gold and silver at an unprecedented pace. They're preparing for something. The question is, are you? For nearly a decade, Noble Gold Investments has helped thousands of people protect their wealth with physical gold and silver. As the world shifts to hard assets, the window to act is closing. Let Noble Gold show you how simple it is to protect yourself and your family. While everyone else is reacting to the news, Noble Gold clients are positioning. The understanding that when the rules change, you need assets that don't depend on the system. Visit X22Gold.com and download your free wealth protection kit. That is X22Gold.com. The rules are changing. Make sure you are ready. Or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech fake news, the puppet masters, you can see they were trying to use the Epstein to get Trump, and it completely and utterly backfired. And now that Trump is releasing all the information, I don't mean himself, we know the Department of Justice is doing this. As all this information is being released and it's made transparent, what do we actually see? We see the deep state players, they attempted to muddy the waters. They attempted to basically take what is real, add in fake information, so this way people couldn't see what was real or fake. And this is what I mean by muddying the water. And when you start to look at the documents, you can see there's a lot of fake documents that refer to Trump, and you could see that this is what they were trying to do. But this attempt has completely and utterly failed. And what we're starting to see now is that it's all the D's that were involved with Epstein. And they were going along with him. They went to the island, and everything that they tried to do with Trump, where they tried to insert certain information, it is completely backfiring on them right now. Just like the entire protest against ICE is completely and utterly backfiring. You have to remember, they're fighting for their lives. They're fighting for their system. They're fighting for the pedophilia networks. They're fighting for drug trafficking, human trafficking, child trafficking. They're fighting to get rid of the Constitution. They're fighting for their system. That's what these people are doing right now. They are the criminals who are fighting for their criminal system. And this is what they've been showing the American people. This is what they've been showing the world. They're showing everyone, we will fight to protect our system. We will fight to protect the criminals. We will fight all the way up to the end, because they know the answer to the question, what happens if they don't fight? They all go to jail. And they believe that if they can do all of this, they might prevent themselves and the entire system from, first of all, being dismantled. And they're hoping they can prevent themselves from going to jail. And we could see this is what they're going to do up to the very, very end. Now, they know the midterms are very, very important. They know if they lose the midterms, it's all over for them. Because you have to remember, the only part of the corrupt system that they can use right now is the judiciary. And it's the federal judges, local judges around the country. They've already lost the executive branch. And they know that if they don't win the House and the Senate, the judiciary branch, which is protecting them right now, completely disappears. Because you know what's going to happen? All the judges are going to be replaced. Trump's nominations are going to be confirmed, and they're going to impeach the judges. So this is all or nothing for them. And I do believe Trump, the Patriots, they're leading them down this path right now, because would it be a lot easier if we arrested and rounded up all the illegals and the criminals in one foul swoop instead of chasing them all down? Yes, we're still going to chase them down, but it'd be much easier if the deep state players would bring them all to the center of each city so we could basically go in and round them all up. I'm talking about the majority of them. And I think this is why Trump now is preparing for mass roundups, because what he's doing right now is he's now leasing warehouses in 23 states, which is going to help him and assist him in basically rounding up the people and bringing the people into these locations before they could be deported or placed into jail. So we're going to see this happen on a grand scale. And I do believe what Trump and the Patriots are doing right now is they're exposing their crimes, exposing everything that they have done, and waking the people up slowly but surely. And as people see more and more of this, and I'm not just talking about the money laundering, the kickbacks, I'm even talking about the election interference, which is actually the rigging of the election and the overthrow of the United States government. As people see more and more of this, and this continually comes out, what people are going to notice, it's always the same people. The people that are protecting the criminals, the people that are protecting the illegals. These are the same people that have been laundering the money. These are the same people that assisted in rigging the elections to overthrow the United States government. These are the same people that work with foreign governments to do this. This is what the people are going to see. And in the end, the people are going to realize that, wait, it's all these people from the very, very beginning. They've been trying to overthrow the United States government since 2016. They succeeded in 2020, and they're still trying to do it. And then add on top of that, with the Epstein information coming out right now, people are starting to say, wait a minute, it's the same people once again. All the same people that have been involved in all of this. It's the same group. And this is what's going to give Trump and the people the leverage. This is what's going to give the counterinsurgency the ability to take the entire system down. The deep state's insurgency is going to fail, and fail big time. Trump is already preparing to basically round them up, arrest them, and bring them to trial. And you can see they're following his path exactly. Now, we're going to be talking a lot more about this a little bit later. But first, let's talk about Melania. She just came out with a new documentary. It is in theaters. And you could see that, once again, the deep state players, they're completely and utterly against the Trumps and the people of this country. And Wokeness put this out and said, this is why nobody trusts the critics. The experts, the critics, all of them. No one should trust them anymore. Remember when Fauci came out? Well, Tomato Meter gave it 86%, but the people gave it 2%. Melania just came out, and the Tomato Meter gave it 11%, the experts, and the people gave it 99%. This should tell you everything you need to know right now. And this goes with the fake news, it goes with the polls, it goes with everything. Everything that you're witnessing, everything that you're seeing on TV and all the polls and the movie critics, it's all fake. It was all put into place to assist the deep state players from the very, very beginning. And you can see they're trying to convince, and I'm talking about the deep state players, the fake news, trying to convince everyone that Trump is going to remove the ICE agents and he's not going to be rounding up people in Minnesota or any other state. But that is completely fake, phony, and false. And actually, Tom Homan let everyone know that it was fake, phony, and false. But the other thing that Tom Homan revealed, and Election Wizard put this out, is that the Trump administration has found over 145,000 to 300,000 missing unaccompanied children who entered the U.S. illegally and were released to unvetted sponsors under the Biden administration. And they were put into labor camps, sex camps, you name it. And this is all part of their pedo network. And now with the Epstein files that have come out right now, you could see that this is not going to go too well for the deep state players. But the other thing that Trump is doing is that he's going to begin suing illegal migrants who have not self-deported. So this is going to put additional pressure on these individuals. And I'm not talking about the criminals. I'm talking about those people that actually could probably come into this country if they were vetted and they came in through the port of entry. So if these people do not leave at this point in time, they are all going to be sued, which is actually going to give the Trump administration a lot of leverage. And I don't think these people are going to want to be sued. But let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Like we said before, the Epstein information, it was dumped this weekend. And there's a lot of information in here, millions and millions of pages of documents, and people have been going through it. And Kenneko the Great, he reported on some of it. And the first part of it is a disturbing photo in the Epstein files appear to show Prince Andrew on all fours over a woman lying on the ground, which is kind of odd. Don't know what the scenario is here, don't know what happened there, but that is kind of odd. The other thing that's very strange, and Hans put this out and says, while there's no evidence that Zohran Mamdani is Jeffrey Epstein's son, the fact that his mother appears in the Epstein files highlights a much broader and deeper problem, which is the incestuous nature of the elite networks. At a certain level, everyone seems to know everyone, work for everyone, or is connected through some opaque web of professional and personal ties. A supposedly random figure from the squalor of Uganda rises all the way to mayor of New York, only for it to later emerge that his mother is deeply embedded in elite circles. The same pattern shows up again and again. James Comey's daughter just happened to be a lead federal prosecutor on the Epstein case. The judge who presided over the trial of Hillary Clinton's lawyers, the one who helped seed the Russiagate hoax, is married to Lisa Page's lawyer. Page, of course, was involved with Peter Strzok, who is one of the central figures in the same hoax. And to complete the circle, Merrick Garland officiated their wedding. None of this requires conspiracy theories. It requires only acknowledging how small, closed, and self-protected these elite worlds are. Fix elite incestuous, and a lot of other problems will disappear on their own. And that's absolutely true. And we could see that, yes, they all are together. They're all part of the same networks. They're all kind of like connected in a certain way. And all these people that have been put into Congress, I would say the majority of them, they have been installed to protect what? The criminal syndicate. Congress was put into place. I'm talking about the installed people, put into place to protect the Federal Reserve. They were put into place to protect and to push certain laws to protect the criminal syndicate. The DOJ, the FBI, DHS, they were there to protect the criminal syndicate. The CIA was put into place to expand the criminal syndicate around the world. And when you look at Democrat Stacey Plaskett, well, apparently she visited Jeffrey Epstein's island in 2014. Kenneth Coe the Great put this out and said, Epstein later texted Plaskett advice on how to smear Trump during a 2019 congressional hearing, guidance she used in real time. Was she the only member of Congress to visit Epstein Island? Most likely not. Kenneth Coe the Great once again put this out and said, Reid Hoffman tells Jeffrey Epstein that he bought him 2 gifts. 1, ice cream for you or the girls. 2, something that may strike your funny bone for the island. Hope you're having fun as usual. Seeing Bill again, 110 with Satya. So that is very, very interesting. And if you notice, it's the same exact players. Now, there are people out there trying to convince everyone that Trump is involved with this somehow, but you have to start to look at these documents. You have to look at what's really going on here, and you have to see that most of it is made up. Reverend Justin Berkobine put this out and said, as a Christian who puts principles and people ahead of party, let me be clear. Bill Clinton was morally unfit for office 30 years ago. Donald Trump is morally unfit for office today. Now, he's looking at a document, but he left out something very, very important, that the charges or what these people were saying, they could not corroborate it. It's fake. It's phony. Cynical Publius responded to this and said, except Bill Clinton actually did the things he was accused of. Why did you leave this part below out, you supposed Christian? Was it so you could bear false witness against your neighbor? And this is what he highlighted. The complainant was spoken to and deemed not credible. Additional research showed 3 separate incidents involving police which requested a mandatory psychiatric evaluation. So the part that he was reading about Trump is not true. And once again, we could see that these documents, what was in there, they wanted to put it out there to muddy the water. And what do I mean by muddy the water? They wanted to make it seem like, well, if Trump stuff is fake, then the other stuff might be fake. And I think they did this on purpose. Now, I think the first part of this is they put this stuff in here because they were to try to use it against Trump. But the second part, I do believe, if that didn't work, was to muddy the water, which means, adding mud to water, making it very, very murky so you don't know what is what. And I think they're trying to use this to say, well, hey, if Trump stuff is all fake, then the other stuff must be all fake. But that's not the case. And people are going to start to realize that no, there are a lot of fake information in these documents, but there's a lot of real information. And I think it's going to be separated, parsed, and we're going to start to see that the stuff about Trump is all fake, And the stuff about Bill Clinton, Reid Hoffman, and the rest, Bill Gates, it's all real. Kaneko the Great put this out and said, most people are misunderstanding Bill Gates' email about STDs, drugs, and Russian girls. It's the closest thing to blackmail I've seen in the Epstein files, and it involves Jeffrey Epstein, Boris Nikolic, and Bill Gates. Epstein sent the emails to himself, but they were written from Nikolic's perspectives. At the time, Nikolic was Gates' top scientific investment advisor. The email suggests Gates was firing Nikolic in response to marital problems with Melinda. In June 2013, Nikolic emailed Gates and asked if he wanted to go to the legendary Crazy Horse in Paris, an erotic show while they were in France. Gates declined, saying he would be too tired and didn't want to take the risk, adding that he might have done it when he was younger. On July 1st, 2013, Gates emailed Nikolic, "We should meet on Wednesday to discuss your job. There's going to have to be a transition. I feel very bad about it, but I don't see a way around it." Nikolic shared these emails with Epstein. Epstein later commented on the Paris erotic show email, writing, "This is pretty bad and might have been the cause of her bad mail in Paris," apparently referring to Melinda. Nikolic appeared unhappy about being fired while potentially being used as a scapegoat, and he sought greater financial compensation as he prepared to leave and launch his own investment fund. In these emails, Epstein, writing as Nikolic, references alleged knowledge of Gates' extramarital affairs, STDs allegedly contracted from Russian women, and drug use as justification for why Nikolic deserved more money. Taken together, it appears Jeffrey Epstein was drafting or shaping a message for Boris Nikolic that effectively functioned as blackmail, pressuring Bill Gates for financial compensation. It remains unclear whether Nikolic ultimately sent these messages to Gates. However, later emails suggest Gates helped Nikolic launch his next investment fund and maintain a working relationship with him afterward. Epstein later listed Nikolic as a backup executor of his will, indicating the two were close confidants, which is very, very interesting. And the other part of the documents that have come out is that Bill Clinton made 32 trips to the island. And I don't think that's too much of a surprise to people, because I think everyone realized that Bill Clinton traveled many, many times to the island. And most likely this is why Bill and Hillary Clinton didn't want to testify in front of Congress. They rather go to jail instead. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that Hoffman, this is Reid Hoffman, by the way, he went to the island multiple times, and he used his fortune to bankroll a lawsuit against Donald Trump, and he used E. Jean Carroll to do it. Now, I think we all know this, but now we have the actual proof of it all. So the documents from this massive release show the close ties between LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman and the late pedophile. The pair discusses visits to Epstein's infamous private island, his New Mexico ranch, and his New York apartment. And this is coming from a 2014 memo, states that Epstein hosted Will Have, Joy Ito, and Reid Hoffman on the infamous Zorro Ranch for a weekend. An email Epstein penned to his assistant, Saida Sapphia, under the heading "Trip to the Island" states, Reid will take a Virgin American flight from SFO to Fort Lauderdale, departing at 8:20 a.m., landing at 4:40 p.m. In 2023, Hoffman visited to Epstein's former Caribbean private island, Little St. James, also known as Pedophile Island. And we could see that Reid Hoffman is involved in all of this. Now, there are certain things that, again, we know that they refer to Trump, and there's also others that refer to Elon Musk, which we'll be getting to in just a sec. But Katie Miller, she posted this about Reid Hoffman and says, then in one source described as the dagger and another as a twist of knife, Thiel sarcastically thanked Hoffman for funding lawsuits against Trump because they had turned him into a martyr, thereby increasing his chances of re-election. I am so grateful to you, Thiel said. From the stage, Hoffman shot back with his own sarcastic quip, yeah, I wish I made him an actual martyr. And on that very uncomfortable note, the exchange ended. Elon responded to this and said, just a reminder that Reid Hoffman really did say in public forum that he wished President Trump had been killed in the assassination attempt. So that's very interesting. So was he involved in any of this? Well, if these are the people that went to Epstein Island, if these are the people that have been treasonous to this country, if these are the people that have been assisting in the money laundering and the pedophile networks and everything else and rigging the election, yeah, I don't think it's that far-fetched that they might have been involved in all of this. And the other thing that's really interesting, and Mike Benz points this out, there's a picture of Jeffrey Epstein, and behind him, there's tons of boxes that are all marked CIA. And Mike Benz says, I don't know where Epstein is or he's talking to, but just pointing out, it's funny, these boxes are all marked CIA. And then Mike Benz says, Epstein, using CIA airplanes in the 80s, using CIA airplanes in the 90s, using CIA airplanes in 2017. So it looks like Epstein was working with the CIA. CIA was working with Epstein, and they've always known about him. And I don't think this is coming as a surprise to anyone. Now, like we said before, there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation. I do believe it was planted in these documents on purpose to muddy the water. The first part was, yes, they were going to try to use it on Trump. And if that failed, they wanted the second part. Well, if Trump stuff's not true or Elon stuff is not true, the rest must be fake. That's what they're trying to do. And what's very interesting is Business Insider, The Guardian, Al Jazeera, and others, they put out headlines about Elon. This is from Business Insider. Elon Musk discussed plans to party with Jeffrey Epstein on his Caribbean island. New released email show. And this says lie. The Guardian, Elon Musk had more extensive ties to Epstein than previously known. Emails show lies. So Elon saying these are all lies. And he says legacy media lies relentlessly. So there was a lot of information that was put into this. And I do believe the deep state players, they had the time to plant it all into the documents. And this is why the Ds were so pushy and forceful in getting all of this out. Because if they truly had this information, they would have brought it out all the way back in 2015 to stop Trump from coming in at that point in time. Or they would have used it in 2020. Or they would have used it when Biden was in office. The question is, why didn't they? Because once again, all these documents were about them. And they protected the documents until they realized that they weren't going to be able to win the presidential election in 2024. So during the Biden/Obama's term, they decided to plant information into all these documents to muddy the water. And here's a part of one of the documents. The FBI report, citing a confidential human source released in the final batch of Epstein files, claims Trump has been compromised by Israel. Cernovich says the report was made in October 2020, long after the Epstein files had broken through. Any crank could make up anything. So really think about it. Is this really true that Israel had Trump where he wanted him? Except Epstein was arrested. Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested. Jean-Luc Brunel was arrested. Les Wexner was arrested. NXIVM sex cult ended. And Trump has been telling Israel on what to do? I don't think so. And then, you know what's interesting? Every day there's a new beauty gimmick taking over social media. It seems like people are wearing 10 different mask tapes and patches to bed just to wake up glowing. But in 2026, we know that glow is just trapped sweat that disappears by noon. If you want skin that actually stays firm, you have to stop obsessing over the surface and start loading up your collagen internally. This is why Aegis Multi-Collagen is a non-negotiable part of my day. Unlike those viral gimmicks, Aegis Multi-Collagen provides 5 premium types of collagen that works from inside out to help reduce wrinkle volume, bring back my youthful glow, and restore my skin's natural bounce. It's flavorless, clump-free, and specifically designed to be highly bioavailable, so it actually reaches my cells. Since I started, my skin has the natural hydration and elasticity that no night mask or face tape could ever replicate. To celebrate Valentine's, get 51% off Aegis Multi-Collagen at healthwithx22.com. Every order includes a glow-up bundle with free VIP coaching for life, the 14 Foods for Amazing Skin ebook, and free shipping. Plus, it's all backed by a 60-day money-back guarantee. Head to healthwithx22.com now to claim your 51% discount before it expires, or just click the link in the description. We have this part of who actually did this. This is coming from Ken Silva. I identified the FBI informant who made this allegation, Charles Johnson. I know this because I have unredacted Johnson CHS reports with the same source ID, 000-99701. Johnson is the one who outed Peter Thiel as an informant. He just got out of jail today. I guess this is a good guy we should believe. No, they made it up. They set it all up. So once again, it's all fake information. Stormers Arrive put this out and said, just because some TDS-inflicted deranged liberals went and filed fake complaints about Trump Epstein to law enforcement during the years of 2016 to 2020 does not make it even close to true. There is zero credibility to the claims, and the documents even say that. And here's like one of them. Tara Bruna put this out and said, Jeffrey Epstein's sex party at age 13 made it all up. So once again, this woman made it all up. She was never there. And basically, it's completely and utterly fake. So once again, we could see that they had these people who might have been on drugs, who needed money or whatever. They just used them to make up stories. They paid them, and most of it's fake. And they've been using this to muddy the water. But there was something in the documents, and Jordan Sather pointed this out. Rachel Chandler. And remember, that was part of a Q post in post 3134. And he says the first connection ever made between Rachel Chandler and Jeffrey Epstein was in Q post in 2019. Now we have Epstein files being released, confirmed they were investigating her. Amazing. How did Q know? Think about that for a second. And Trump let everyone know, while I was taking questions on Air Force One, that Epstein pretty much absolves him. Stormers Arrive put this out and said, he said that the latest release absolves him and says he will likely be suing Michael Wolff and possibly the Epstein estate for conspiring with Epstein to harm him politically. I didn't see it myself, but I was told by some very important people that not only does it absolve me, it's the opposite of what people were hoping, the radical left. Wolff, who is a third-rate writer who was conspiring with Jeffrey Epstein to hurt me politically or otherwise, don't fall for all the clickbait doomers pushing the anti-Trump narratives. It's all BS. Lots of people not looking good through after today's release. Will be interesting to see how this all plays out. Now remember, this was about the deep state players muddying the water, and the idea of muddying the water originates from stirring up mud in water, making it murky and hard to see through it all. And that's exactly what they did. And they did it on purpose because who needed the out? Who needed the ability to say, well, we can't believe any of this? It's the deep state players. It's the Clintons. This is why the Clintons, Gates, Reid Hoffman, Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and many, many other people, this is why they were so panicked about Epstein. This is why probably Epstein really killed himself. But again, you could see as of right now, the truth is coming out. And as people go through these documents, you're going to see that most of the documents have nothing to do with Trump, or if they do have Trump's name in it, it was completely made up and they were trying to bring him in. And actually, I do believe they were trying to do is they were trying to muddy all this. So this way they could look at it and say, well, that's fake, then it's all fake. But again, you're going to see that there's going to be other documented proof. There's going to be other pictures that are going to be coming out. And we're going to see that, no, the part that that's about, the D's, the Clintons, the Reid Hoffman, and the rest, that is all true. It's all going to fall apart for them. And it's going to get worse and worse as time goes on. Because you have to remember, it's not just about the Epstein files. Yeah, that's part of their system. But there are other parts to the system. It's not the only thing. And each piece that comes in, it creates the full puzzle. So when you see like the money laundering and you see these same people, they're involved in it. Well, that's a piece of the puzzle. When you see them bringing in the illegals to launder the money, well, that's a piece of the puzzle. When you see these people conspiring with foreign governments to overthrow the United States government, or they're bringing in the Russian collusion, that's another piece of the puzzle. So when you start to put all these pieces together, you could see that they were protecting their system. And Epstein is part of their puzzle. That's their whole entire system. And I think it's going to become clearer and clearer as we go on. And when you start to look at all these different parts of the puzzle, people are going to say, okay, I cannot unsee it because now I know who the criminals are. Because let's say they paid for Russia collusion. They overthrew the United States government. They worked for foreign governments. They protected these documents. And now we come to find out, no, these same people that did all those other things, that even tried to indict him, that tried to assassinate him. They were protecting all of this. And then you add in Epstein and people go, holy crap, look at this. Now we get it. Now we understand why they went after Trump. Now we understand why they had to cheat in 2020. Now we understand why they had to indict him leading up to the 2024 presidential election. Now we understand why they had to assassinate him, because he was going to expose all of this. And it's going to make sense to the people of this country. Slowly but surely, the information is getting out there. And now the deep state players, they are doomed. Just like Iran right now. This is a deep state controlled country, just like Venezuela, just like Colombia, just like Cuba, just like Ukraine. And now it's completely and utterly falling apart. And what's very interesting is that we mentioned this last week. Europe decided to designate the Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization. So Iran decided to fight back and basically said, okay, we're going to say that Europe is a terrorist organization. The EU is a terrorist organization. The problem is that Iran has no pull. They can't place sanctions on anyone. They can't do anything. So it's kind of meaningless. And basically, it's not going to work. And again, you're going to see that Iran is about to change, just like Cuba is about to change. But you could see the deep state players. You could see that their entire system depends on them stopping we the people from winning the midterms. And they're going to be fighting back with everything that they have as we move forward. And what's very interesting is step by step, we're starting to see that these individuals that they give awards to, these judges that are protecting the deep state, the criminal syndicate, they're all part of the same system. And slowly but surely, people are starting to see that everything that they've been telling us is one gigantic illusion. For example, the U.S. Attorney of Massachusetts put this out and said, Monica Cannon Grant, former Bostonian of the Year, was sentenced on public corruption charges for using her nonprofit as a personal bank account, stealing $66,000 in COVID relief, and fraudulent obtaining housing and unemployment benefits. So she was Bostonian Person of the Year, and she's a criminal. Starting to see it now. And look at the corruption that we're seeing right now. Like we said, the judiciary is the other branch that we need to take control of if we're going to have justice. Because look what just happened to Don Lemon. Nick Sorter put this out. Don Lemon indictment has been unsealed by the court, officially showing he has been charged with 2 federal felonies for participating in the attack on city churches in St. Paul. F around, find out, Lemon. Count 1, 18 U.S.C. Section 241, conspiracy against right of religious freedom at place of worship. Count 2, 18 U.S.C. Section 248 A.B. Section 2A, FACE Act, injure, intimidate, and interfere with exercise of right of religious freedom at a place of worship. Full indictment in replies. So basically, you could see that he was indicted. But the judge, the Democrat Judge Patricia Donahue, released Don Lemon without bail. She's letting him leave the country in June for a beach vacation with his lover. So basically, there's no bail and he can leave the country. This is how corrupt the system is. Now, this doesn't mean he's going to get off, but as of right now, if this is the judge, you know they're going to use lawfare. You know they're going to figure out how to get him off. And you can see that how corrupt the system really is. And like we said before, Tom Homan, he debunked the idea that Trump is backing off mass deportations. He says, we're going to prioritize the arrest of criminals and public safety threats. Prioritization is smart law enforcement. But if you're in the country illegally, you're not off the table. And Trump is not going to stop. But I do believe what Trump is doing right now, he's repositioning. Why would he be repositioning? Because as we get closer and closer to the midterms, he knows the playbook. He knows what they're going to do. He knows they're going to be pushing an insurrection. So that, I do believe, that is what he's preparing for. And he's setting everything up. And you can see out in L.A., you could see that there were riots out there. Anti-ICE rioters clashed with federal agents and local police outside the L.A. ICE facility. And they were lighting things on fire, and it was a complete and utter disaster. And Maxine Waters decided to join them, and she started to chant against ICE. And basically, you could see that, yeah, these people have a lot to lose. I mean, Maxine Waters, look at her wealth. Do you really think she's that smart where she could become that wealthy in Congress? Does that make any sense whatsoever? Or was she getting kickbacks to protect the deep state players? Absolutely. But what Trump is doing right now, he's bringing out all the deep state players. Remember, the insurrectionists are not just Antifa. They're not just the criminals. They're not just illegals. These are going to be mayors, governors, news reporters, you name it. You're going to see all the insurrectionists come out. Trump wants them front and center for the insurrection. American AF put this out and said, Long Beach mayoral candidate Martinez has called on all 55 gang leaders in the city to team up and remove ICE agents. Robbie Starbuck says Democrats are basically doing organized crime. Secret signal chats to coordinate plans to stop ICE and attacking them apparently wasn't enough. Now this candidate wants to unite 55 gangs in Long Beach against ICE agents, many of which are illegals. All of them belong in prison. Everyone's starting to see what's going on here. So basically, this is what they're trying to do at this moment. They're calling on the criminals, the illegals, the gang members, the terrorists, you name it, to fight we the people. And most of this, especially Antifa, is paid for by the taxpayers of this country. And remember, Trump has shut off the middleman. Doesn't mean the money just stops and they have no money. They've been getting a lot of money from the system, but Trump cut them off. So they have the funds they have now, but they're not getting new funds. Maybe in some other places, but not the way they were getting it before. Wall Street Apes put this out and said, James O'Keefe exposes a paid protester nonprofit organization that has a budget of $30 million. American taxpayers are literally paying for our own ICE protests. The United States government is funding this. Protesters, we secretly recorded talks about an organization called Make the Road New York. We've never heard of this organization, but apparently they have a budget of $30 million. We looked up the tax returns of Make the Road New York and found they were a registered 501 that filed a 990, and they received $16 million in grants. Again, the United States government is funding this. Yes, the deep state players, they set up the entire government structure to fund their system through NGOs. So basically, everything that we're seeing, everything that we're experiencing is coming from we the people. This is why, in the end, we need to shut down the Federal Reserve, because that's where all these funds come from. If you have an open-ended credit card, it's going to breed corruption. And this is exactly what it did. And if you could just borrow without being accountable, you'll just keep doing it. And that's exactly what we see right now. And they created a system going back 50 years ago, 50 plus years ago. And they set up the agencies, they set up the NGOs, they set it up so it's very, very difficult to shut down. And I do believe this is why Trump brought in Elon Musk and Doge to find out where the bulk of the money was flowing through. So this way they could shut down the middleman, because you still need the Federal Reserve to keep the government and the system right now operational. I don't mean the criminal syndicate, but the system that we have today that we live on, you still need the money. So if you shut off the middleman, you can shut down a lot of their funding without destroying the country. And I do believe this is exactly what Trump has done. But you can see the entire judiciary, it needs to be removed. And the only way to do this is to basically get control of the House and Senate. That's why the midterms are so important. That's why the deep state players are going to have riots during the midterms, because they know when they lose, they're screwed. But you can see how corrupt the judiciary is. Eric Doherty put this out and said, thousands are demanding the impeachment of unhinged leftist judge Fred Berry after he wrote a shockingly incoherent order freeing the 5-year-old boy from federal custody who was abandoned by his migrant parents. Ends his opinion with a judicial finger in the constitutional dike. It is so ordered. February 31st doesn't exist. LinkedIn shows he liked a TDS post about ICE today. Includes a photo of the kid in the order. Unprofessionally antagonistic language. What the F? This is a judge? Once again, when you look at the president of El Salvador, when you listen to Elon Musk, they've always said it. You need to get rid of the judiciary. If we're going to have justice and we're going to do it the right way, this is the other branch that we need to take control over. And look at all these other judges. Election Wizard put this out and said, left-wing Michigan Judge Andrea Bradley Baskin and 3 others have been charged with fraud by the Trump DOJ. They are accused of using the court system in Detroit to defraud and embezzle hundreds of thousands from incapacitated people. I mean, this tells you everything you need to know. It's all corrupt. And if you notice, it's always the D's. It's always this. Yes, there's going to be rhinos too. But if you notice, they're always receiving money. They're always taking money from daycares, taking money from Medicaid, Medicare. They're taking money from incapacitated people. These are criminals. You have to bring in criminals to run the criminal syndicate. And I think people now are starting to see it. If they're not, they'll be waking up and they'll see more and more of it. And you can see that every time they try to stop Trump, it completely and utterly fails. Nick Sorter says Trump wins in Minnesota. A federal judge has just refused to block President Trump's surge of DHS agents into the state for immigration operations. Major loss for Tim Walz, Mayor Fry, and Keith Ellison. The deportations will continue. Absolutely. And Trump is letting everyone know he is now preparing for what is coming. And he put out a couple of posts. He says the following. The radical left lunatics, insurrectionists, and agitators and thugs are going after Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, because she is a woman and has done a really great job. The border disaster that I inherited is fixed. The violent criminals that were allowed into our country through Sleepy Joe's sick open border policy are largely gone or being strongly sought for purposes of removal. And the murder rate in the USA just reached the lowest level in history, 125 years. Washington, D.C. is now one of the safest cities in America. Likewise, numerous other once very dangerous cities. Republicans don't let these crooked Democrats who are stealing billions of dollars from Minnesota and other cities and states from all over the country push you around. They're using this aggressive protest scam to obfuscate, camouflage, and hide their criminal acts of theft and insurrection. They should all be in jail. I was elected on a strong borders and law and order, among many other things. Thank you to Secretary Kristi Noem. Remember, elections have consequences. President DJT. And then he let everyone know that the theft and fraud in Minnesota is far greater than $19 billion originally projected. The Biden administration knew this fraud was happening and did absolutely nothing about it. Scammer Ilhan Omar and her absolutely terrible friends from Somalia should all be in jail right now, or far worse. Send them back to Somalia. Governor Walz is either the most corrupt government official in history or the most incompetent. Even a very low IQ person, of which there are many, should have known what was going on in Minnesota. And he's absolutely right. And basically, he's letting everyone know that he's now planning for the insurrection. He's planning on rounding all these people up. He's planning all of it because he knows what's coming. He knows as we get closer and closer to the midterms, the deep state players will push their agenda. And he says, I have instructed Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, that under no circumstances are we going to participate in various poorly run Democrat cities with regard to their protests and or riots unless and until they ask us for help. We will, however, guard and very powerfully so any and all federal buildings that are being attacked by these highly paid lunatics, agitators, and insurrectionists. Please be aware that I have instructed ICE and or Border Patrol to be very forceful in this protection of federal government property. There'll be no spitting in the faces of our officers. There'll be no punching or kicking the headlights of cars. There'll be no rock or brick throwing at our vehicles or at our patriot warriors. If there is, these people will suffer an equal or more consequence. In the meantime, by copy of this statement, I am informing local governments, as I did in L.A. when they were rioting at the end of the Biden term, that you must protect your own state and local property. In addition, it is your obligation to also protect our federal property, buildings, parks, and everything else. We are there to protect federal property only as a backup, in that it is local and state responsibility to do so. Last night in Eugene, Oregon, these criminals broke into a federal building and did great damage, also scaring and harassing the hardworking employees. Local police did nothing in order to stop it. We will not let that happen anymore. If local governments are unable to handle the insurrectionists, agitators, and anarchists, we will immediately go to the location where such help is requested and take care of the situation very easily and methodically, just as we did the LA riots 1 year ago, where the police chief said that we couldn't have done it without the help of the federal government. Therefore, to all complaining local governments, governors, and mayors, let us know when you are ready, and we will be there. But before we do so, you must use the word please. Remember that I stated in the strongest of language to beware ICE, Border Patrol, or, if necessary, our military will be extremely powerful and tough in the protection of our federal property. We will not allow our courthouses, federal buildings, or anything else under our protection to be damaged in any way, shape, or form. I was elected on a police policy of border control, which has now been perfected. National security and law and order. That's what America's wanted, and that's what America is getting. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. So basically, he's letting everyone know that when all this goes down, he'll be sending in the troops. And those states that don't request it, well, he'll be bringing in the troops to stop it all. And he'll use the military. He will use the National Guard to shut it all down because he has the ability to use the Insurrection Act. And once again, and this is what Trump put out on Truth, pointing to Bill Mitchell, it says Supreme Court just handed Trump a massive win, 5-4 ruling, unleashes wartime powers for huge gang deportations. In a stunning 5-4 ruling, the U.S. Supreme Court has granted President Trump broad wartime authority under the 1798 Aliens Enemies Act. Breaking news dropping like thunder. This means Tren de Aragua. These thugs, they'll get shipped straight to El Salvador, Munster's prison. No more games, real enforcement hitting violent gangs hard and making streets safer for American families. And that goes pretty much with anything now. So he has the authority and he has the ability to do all of this. But what's very interesting, it looks like Trump now is preparing for what is to come. Because Trump's DHS, they're now buying industrial warehouses in at least 8 states to establish a large-scale mass detention network. So either these people can take the $2,600 and deport themselves and, go to back to their countries, or they're going to be rounded up later on. But it's not just 8 large-scale detention centers. It's actually going to be 23 warehouses. And what is this going to allow Immigration and Customs Enforcement to do? Well, it's going to allow them to add up to 76,500 detention beds nationwide to support deporting over 1 million people annually, with sites potentially holding 500 to 9,500 individuals each. The plans involve up to 23 warehouses, often near logistical hubs or airports, for efficient processing and deportation. More than a dozen states with purchases already completed in at least 3. So let's say we're heading to the midterms. They're purchasing all these warehouses. I know I said leases in the very beginning of the report, but it's a purchase. They're purchasing all of these, and they're setting them up for the right moment, the right time. Isn't it going to be a lot easier if all the people riot, if they bring out Antifa, the illegals, the criminals, into one location in all different cities? And I wonder which areas they're setting this up in. Probably all the blue states, the sanctuary cities, to make it easier for them to take them and bring them to a certain area where they don't have to fly them across the country. And then they can use that area and deport them or send them to prison. So it looks like they're planning for all of this. And just let the enemy bring all these people out into the open and let's just round them all up. It's that easy. So again, why interfere with the enemy while they're in the process of destroying themselves? Because think about what else Trump is doing right now. Trump is exposing the election fraud step by step to put pressure on the rhinos, to put pressure on those people in the House and Senate. I think the House has already passed the SAVE Act. We just need the Senate to do it. So either get rid of the filibuster, pass the SAVE Act, or pass the SAVE Act. But you can see every step of the way, who's going to try to stop all of this? judges, because that's the branch we need to get control over. Kyle Cheney put this out and said, Judge Collar Kotali permanently enjoins President Trump's executive order claiming to impose a citizenship requirement to vote or register to vote. Stephen Miller responded to this and said, Democrat judge says illegal aliens can vote as long as they check the box saying they are American. So once again, you could see what's happening here. Every step of the way, they're trying to get their illegals to vote in the elections. They won't be able to use mail-ins right now, maybe in a couple of the states, but not many of them. So once again, you could see they're using the judiciary to try to stop everything that Trump is doing. But in the end, it's not going to work because Trump, he has the FBI, he has Tulsi Gabbard on the ground looking at the rigged evidence. And they're going to produce this to show that, yes, there were individuals within this country and foreign governments working together to overthrow the United States government. And what's very interesting is that the Atlanta field office's special agent in charge was allegedly removed for slow-walking election fraud investigation. So once again, we still have certain sleepers within the agencies, and step by step, as soon as they're found out, they are removed. But Storm Arai put this out, and this is FBI Director Kash Patel letting everyone know the update for what's happening out in Fulton County. He says, what we did was what we do in every other investigation. We went in there, we followed the rules of the search warrant. The FBI and DOJ went in and collected numerous pieces of evidence that the judge authorized us to collect. And what we're going to do next is we're going to go through the voluminous amounts of information collected and continue our investigation. At this point, there's not much more I could say publicly because we have to go through a lot of material. But it was predicated on a finding of probable cause by a judge in Georgia. Time for people to go to jail. We all watched it stolen in real time, and we're all still pissed off about it. And now we're going to see how they did it in real time, and the rest of the country is going to see this. Once again, Stormers Arrived put this out, and this is about Tulsi Gabbard and why she was at the Georgia raid. The reporter said, Mr. President, what was Tulsi Gabbard doing at an election center in Georgia today? Trump said, she's working very hard on trying to keep the election safe, and she's done a very good job. And as you know, they got into the votes. You've got a signed judge's order in Georgia, and you're going to see some interesting things happen. We've waited a long time for this. Let's get it. And I do believe Tulsi's there because foreign governments were involved in manipulating the election. But Joe Lange explains what we're seeing. He said everything is planned and timed. If you can't see how everything is lining up to permanently fix our election system before the midterms, then you're missing why several different narratives are accelerating and getting ready to converge. The Supreme Court will hear oral arguments on April 1st in the challenge to President Trump's efforts to end birthright citizenship. That is the guarantee of citizenship to virtually everyone born in the United States. A Supreme Court decision ending birthright citizenship would completely end any hopes of Democrats winning elections. Interesting that Iran is a big story in the news right now, too. Have you ever heard the term April showers? How are they connected? Q drop 1146, April 14th. Expand your thinking. The date versus actual. Iran next. Trust the plan. April showers. Showers. Do you believe in coincidences? Iran is about to make big news and will lead us into April showers. Guess which state's election system will be most affected if the Supreme Court ends birthright citizenship? Drop 1109, April 9th. California targeted. How often does POTUS RT weekly addresses? April showers. Here's what Trump said in that tweet. The Democrats are not doing what's right for our country. I will not rest until we have secured our border and restored the rule of law. Securing the border and deporting illegals also destroys the Democrats' hope of winning future elections. And April showers are going to lead to the next part of the plan, March Madness. So basically, we could see that the information is going to be coming out about the elections. California is going to be affected. The birthright citizenship, well, the Supreme Court's going to rule in favor of Trump. All of this is going to be ending. And the evidence is going to be coming out showing the people who's responsible for the overthrow of the United States government. And remember, it took up to this point to get the people on the same page right now. And the D's now are now on the side of MAGA, if you really think about it. Rasmussen Reports put this out and said, and this is the question they asked, should only U.S. citizens be allowed to vote in U.S. elections? 85% said yes, 11% said no. Here's the other question. How likely is it that non-U.S. citizens are illegally registered to vote in the states where you live? 55% say it's likely, 37% not likely, 9% say not sure. So the people, they get it. They understand that non-citizens might be voting in the election. So they understand that the elections are rigged. I do believe these poll numbers are going to go way higher as the evidence comes out. And this is going to put a lot of pressure on the rhinos as we approach the midterms. Yes, Trump has put many things into place, but every step of the way, he's making sure that this never happens again. And actually, it's going to give him all the leverage he needs. Now, if one thing doesn't work, let's say we don't get the SAVE Act, he still is going to get the Supreme Court ruling on the birthright citizenship. Let's say we didn't get that. Well, we also have the ruling that it's only one-day voting, so you can't bring in mail-in ballots after that, or the GOP has the ability to sue. So when you start to look at this, we have different levels that Trump made sure that we would have a fighting chance to win the midterms. Harmeet Dillon is cleaning up all the voter rolls. He's deporting all the illegals. The Social Security numbers cannot be used now. So every step of the way, every level, he's making it more and more difficult. Yes, it would be great if we got the birthright citizenship. That'd be fantastic, because that and everything else would basically allow us to win the midterms. If we got the SAVE Act, well, that is guaranteed that we win the midterms. But Trump, he put all of this into place to make sure that we were able to override whatever they tried to do, and we're able to win the elections. This is why he's been doing this entire time. This is why you see all the different levels to make sure that we shut down the deep state players. Now you understand why the deep state players, Obama, the rest, Hillary Clinton, you name it, this is why they need riots during the midterms. Because if there's no mail-in ballots, they're not using the machines, and you have to go to the poll centers, what are they going to try to do? They're going to try to scare people away from the poll centers so they can't hold elections. They want Trump to use the Insurrection Act so they can blame it on him. Oh, he's the one who's causing the chaos. That's why we can't have elections. But in the end, it's all going to fail. Now, like we said before, they might even take this to the next step, because, again, if this is not working, they might even try cyber attacks to add in extra chaos. Because you have to remember, their whole plan is to try to get us into war. This is part of the 16-year plan. So I do believe Trump and the Patriots, they know the playbook. They know exactly what they're planning to do. And this is why Trump has been preparing for what is coming, because he knows what they're preparing for. And he's building the counterinsurgency, and it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Once the people understand the Epstein stuff, once people understand how they overthrew the United States government, once people understand the kickbacks and the money laundering, all people have to do is start to put it all together. And if they can't, the Trump administration will assist them on that one. And you're going to see a lot of people all of a sudden get that light bulb moment, go, holy crap, now I get it. Now I understand it. Even the Republicans who might not even see it, they're going to see it. And people are going to understand why they've been attacking Trump since 2015. They're going to understand, holy crap, they're criminals. They've been protecting themselves because they don't want to stand trial. They don't want the hammer coming down on them. The people, they're going to see it. And once the people see it, they're never going to forget it. And once that happens, the deep state, they're done for. The D's, the deep state players, they're going to cease to exist the way we know them today. I don't think they're going to be able to win another election for years on end. They won't be able to do it. Why? Because the Patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.